Wow. Just as much of an emotional roller coaster as it was the first time I watched it. In fact, even more so now that I can actually feel emotions a little more properly. Compared to the other two entries thus far, it's really amazing how much story they crammed into this one. It felt like two or even three entries with how relaxed the story was before. So without further ado, let's jump into this masterpiece.
The movie basically picks up where we left off last time. The area Leomon died has become a crime scene, and Mimi is being congratulated on a job well done for the cheerleading.
In fact, other students were annoyed they couldn't join in the festivities.
This reminds Mimi, where is Mako? According to one of the students, she took out the trash, but she's been gone for a long time now. Mimi finds her in the hallway when she begins to run. Sora sees this and follows Mako. She drops where she still can't process that Meicoomon just killed Leomon. They console her. When she convinces herself, she is fine. At home, Mako's mother is making tempura, a reward for doing so well at the cultural festival. She then asks where her dad is, to which the mom says he will be running late.
In a bit of a twist, her dad is the head of the organization that Mr. Nishijima and Miss Okidera work for.
They have a meeting, as lately airplanes have been having technical failures, very similar to distortions. It is theorized that Meicoomon is causing this, but there is no proof. Outside, Mr. Nishijima and Mrs. Okidera bump into Matt. He wants whatever information he can get his hands on about Meicoomon. While this is classified, Mrs. Okidera shares what she knows with him. However, she omits that Ken Ichijoji is missing.
It's been about a week when Joe decides to check in on Izzy, and it's a good thing that he did.
As he's been living off of black tea and cheap ramen as he researches Meikumon's infection. Joe is in a surprisingly good mood now that he's stopped caring so much about his grades. He convinces Izzy to take a nap when TK comes over. We find that all of the Digimon have basically been in quarantine since the infection and want out.
After living through COVID, I can very much relate to their predicament.
TK goes to embrace Batamon, where we find he is infected. He goes crazy, biting into TK's arm. After a little bit, the corruption goes away. Joe wants to know what is happening, when TK just brushes it off as a really loving embrace. Patamon is a little suspicious, though, as he wonders where those teeth marks came from.
TK then gives a for instance as to what they would do if they found out one of the Digimon were infected.
I guess we'd have to fight them.
TK, fearing what would happen, decides to take Patamon away, under the guise that it would be safer if they weren't all in one place if an outbreak happened.
Izzy is pretty ticked off, and all the other Digidestined want their Digimon too. They reason that it's the best strategy to take them all home, as they can keep a better eye on them.
The conversation then turns to what they would have to do in the case that their Digimon became infected. All of them agree that they would have to fight their own Digimon.
Which triggers TK. The meeting adjourns when TK wants to talk to Mako.
She's probably the only one that can relate to TK right now.
TK comes clean to Mako about Patamon's condition. He very much fears that he will become just like Meicoomon and wants to share in the grief. TK then worries this might come off as him saying it's all Mako's fault and starts apologizing. However, Mako states that it really was her fault. At home, TK meets with Patamon, where he understands he is infected. He knows what this means and asks that if he goes berserk, that TK is to kill him.
TK just can't stand to hear such talk as he knows there's just only so much time left.
We then get some startling news. Another round of electrical failures, followed by a message.
The time for destruction is now.
The news reports affect the other Digimon, who want to do something. With Izzy out of commission, they get together for a meeting. As they talk, a possessed Kari tells the Digimon a solution, the reboot of the digital world. There is also a timer When Meicoomon comes back, the world will end. Before much more is said, Kari faints and Miss Okidera comes in to catch her and explains what the reboot means.
This would remove the virus, but it would also remove all of their memories. They see this as their only option and spend the last few days of their known lives their human partners. Between Patamon being slowly consumed as well as the other Digimon trying to keep up a happy face, realizing that their time on this earth is limited,
I just want to play.
there is a lot of emotional weight here.
Meicoomon returns more powerful through an intense data surge. The Digidestined head there and attempt to keep Meicoomon from coming back into the real world. The tug-of-war goes back and forth while Izzy is trying to figure out this reboot situation. As Izzy gets there with Tentamon, the reboot is set with a hard timer. Izzy sets a backup, but all get corrupted, except for Tentamon and Metal Greymon. Izzy urges that Tentamon go into the backup, but he can't stand by while all his other friends are fighting. Tentamon then goes to the Mega level with Hercules Kabuterimon.
Now, one of the things I find fun is that this Digimon has actually been around since the first edition card game, and this is the version I have. It's holographic.
Well, it seems like everybody is going to overwhelm Hercules Kabuterimon. He is able to have them find themselves as he pushes them back into the field, just in time for the reboot to be completed.
They all grieve the loss of their best friend and quickly move on, except for Izzy,
who wants to go back and see them again. All of them pass, but are drawn to the sound of a whistle. With this, they attempt to get to the digital world. TK even invites Mako to come along, but she's not having it. Mako feels responsible for all this, as she knew from the beginning that Meicoomon was the source of the virus.
They share an understanding, as neither could confess the truth to the others.
Mako keeps trying to get rid of TK, but he is not having it. After all, she is also a Digidestined. In the end, though, she stays behind. It's Miss Okidera that helps them by bringing Ken's Digivice.
Yet somehow Matt doesn't piece together the significance of this?
In the digital world, they find it's pretty similar to how it was before, but there is just something off about it. After avoiding a fight with Alphamon and Jestmon, the Digidestined find their Digimon with the sound of a whistle.
Same whistle that Kari gave to Gatomon at the end of Season 1.
While several want to embrace, Izzy understands they have to reform the friendship from scratch. So, they start with wanting to know the world and about them. Before the movie ends, we find Miss Okidera is there, and instead of the Digimon Emperor, we find it's young Genai. It was looking more like if Phantom Menace Obi-Wan went to the dark side. That is where the movie ends.
That is Confession, an emotional roller coaster that is refreshingly heavy on the story. For the others, it was nice to just kind of geek out in the idea that the Digidestined are reunited with their Digimon and given a moment to breathe. It's nice to actually see them go on a bit more of an adventure. And you know what? Come to think of it, it would make sense that both of these movies would be more on the emotional friendship, as this movie is all about the end of said emotional friendship. In ways, it kind of reminds me of Ben-Hur. And yes, I'm comparing classic cinema to Digimon right now. It's the idea that you have to have a lot of build-up in order for the conclusion to have any sort of satisfaction. And then when you get to that conclusion, you kind of wish that there was a little more build-up on the way to make the ending seem that much better. Although in this case, it would be more sadder because it was obviously not necessarily a happy ending. So, I hope you'll join me next time for Loss. This is a weird thing to mention, but maybe it's just the color scheme, but it just makes me think of peanut butter and jelly. Let's see how this one goes. From my recollection, I don't remember liking this one so much. But then again, with how much of a mountain Confession was, I guess that's a lot to live up to. Yeah. Yeah. This one is still an emotional roller coaster, just as much as I remember. And it is also a really good entry because of it. With how with how relaxed the story was in the other two, this one felt like it moved. This one felt like it had enough story to fill 2 or even 3 movies. It was just something that kept going, and I'm like, when does it end? I, in fact, I thought the cutoff was at a different place, but the story kept going, and wow. Just as much of an emotional roller coaster as it was the first time I watched it. In fact, even more so